Our second presenter, and it's going to just take us a second to get the laptop hooked up again, is Diana Kamin from Fordham University. The title of her presentation is Rhetoric of the Image Collection. Let's make sure it's working.
So I have this from Amanda. It goes on that side. Thank you so much. Oh, okay. Thank you. I'm also wondering though why, is there some additional, but nothing's appearing up here. I'm not sure. Oh yeah, maybe. Let's try to get it in there. Oh, something's happening. There we go. Thank you. Thank you all for having me. Lance is my colleague at Fordham, and I'm really grateful for his invitation. I'm learning a lot today, and thinking and meditating a lot about intersubjectivity and different ways to show up with my students, with my family, so I'm grateful for that. And I hope you'll enjoy this little bit of a diversion into media history and visual communication. And I know Lev, I think, couldn't make it, but I was... Here, oh, look, you're here!
Don't say bad things about me yet.
Well, I was going to say, I feel like this is a full circle moment because in grad school, I took a class with Lev, and he was a reader on my dissertation, which is now a book that I received in the mail yesterday. So I'm happy to talk to you all today. This is not actually, okay. So all the semioticians in the room will recognize the reference in my paper title to the classic 1964 essay by Roland Barthes, Rhetoric of the Image, which is the bane of any professor charged with teaching semiotic analysis to undergraduate students, because you have to use his analysis of this Panzani advertisement, trying to parse out concepts of connotation and denotation, why it's academically sound to use the term Italianicity as a sign. But of course, Barthes' primary intention and the reason why we keep teaching it is to dissect how the image communicates in a way that feels spontaneous and natural to the viewer, but is actually the product of all kinds of cultural and ideological relays. Did you say it's closer to my mouth? It won't? Sorry. So while Barthes presumably selected the image after paging through a magazine, I was able to find it on a search engine, an organized index of digital images. The topic of my brief talk today is how the ways in which image collections are organized for circulation are also constructed, also smuggle in values and larger social myths in ways that feel natural and spontaneous to the viewer, to the user. And I argue that the organization and circulation of image collections is a particular type of labor, what I call picture work, that has become routinized, individual, and mundane as people manage multiple and personal archives, collecting and captioning snapshots of daily experience. At the same time, that labor has become increasingly offloaded to black boxed algorithms that label, store, and analyze our images so as to better serve them back to us as products. Indeed, the progress of artificial intelligence and machine vision, which we'll discuss more later, is powered by the aggregation and control of massive image data sets whose politics are revealed at the seams when those systems fail. But picture work and its political implications and visual and communication implications precede the smartphone and the image data set. Professionalized, commercialized, or informalized across multiple sectors, picture work helped build the image collections of the 20th century and our contemporary conceptions of the image. I explore this idea in multiple contexts in my book, but would like to focus on one today as a continued engagement with Bart, focusing on the case study of the early stock photography pioneer H. Armstrong Roberts. Looking at his production processes, bureaucratic organization, and marketing in the 1920s and 1930s demonstrates it's this tale of an international business that was oriented around very postmodern ideas about the construction of ambiguous scenes that could be anchored to a variety of contexts that could be sold over and over again. It's an early embrace of semiotic promiscuity of modern visual culture that was communicated, albeit in ways that might feel spontaneous and natural in every aspect of interacting with these images, of the public that interacted with these images and has interacted with them in the century since. So I argue generally that this broad exposure to stock photography ultimately trains the public in how to decode images by allegorizing the process of seeing machinically, of performing those kinds of relays. So to produce a collection of photographic inventory comprehensive enough to promise the, quote, right picture right when you want it, Roberts had to develop multiple forms of infrastructure to support his growing business: physical, informational, and technological. I'm going to review some of that infrastructure in detail because it's precisely the material and industrial conditions that often go unquestioned in considering theories of the image or photographic meaning making. I argue that the pressure to scale and the deference to the system as a creative actor, which is arguably a dominant feature of the drive to build and accept and our understanding of AI image generation software, that sort of faith in scaling up in the drive, the desire to produce the encyclopedic image collection. Specifically, practically, Roberts built his business in a Victorian duplex in West Philadelphia. There, in addition to living quarters, he constructed studio, labs, a printing facility, storage, and offices, creating a space that would sustain the company into the 21st century. Indeed, Robert's stock, classic stock, still operates in that building today. In the studio, Roberts built his library around products generic enough to apply to multiple buyers. Tobacco, beer, milk, and bread, perennial commodities that were in constant demand by advertisers, could contribute to an evergreen stock of material for potential clients and were regularly incorporated into shoots. This recurring use of props and the modular settings available in his home represented the polysemy of the photographic image, where the addition of a telephone, hourglass, or top hat could drastically change a scene to attract different would-be buyers. Using the same models, Roberts could capture multiple scenes and a range of activities in one shoot. This is reflected most comedically in the thousands and thousands of baby negatives in the collection with various props. At the studio, Roberts adapted the classic card cabinet, an office technology that had been successfully transferred from the library to business context by the early 20th century, for his specific needs. The card system he developed in the 1920s continues to be used by staff today. Here, the central cabinet houses contact cards organized by subject and identification number for every image in the inventory. Sales, prints, marketing were all recorded on the card. The cards would move around the office as different departments implemented their documentation, landing on Robert's desk where he would review the stack of contact cards every morning to review recent sales. So this is the movement of the card itself is an understanding of the image as mobile and as commodity. So by adapting his records into a custom designed index that accommodated contact prints, was organized with control numbers, and contained a record of sales, Roberts was able to dramatically scale his business. This is a proto, computer database almost. As he disarticulated his images from specific narratives and places, the temporality of the images shifts. Chronology, sequence, and specificity of place were all deliberately muffled and replaced with a record system with evergreen adaptability to new contexts. Markers of inventory management also extended to the public-facing interface of the collection, his marketing catalogs. Promising comprehensiveness and organized by types of subject matter, the catalogs positioned the company as architects of the visual world of advertising, the eyes through which types are abstracted for an imagined consumer. The catalogs also reinforced the impression of the image as a commodity by offering an array of images as potential products to the client, promising a vast inventory that lay in reserve. On this page, the grid of unrelated images imposes spatial logic, but the randomness of the images conveys their self-sufficiency. The lack of connection between images, the idea that they can be rearranged or replaced without changing the meaning of the spread, serves to illustrate the ambitions of the collection itself, an encyclopedic, evolving cataloging of human life, whereas you can see by these images, primarily white, middle to upper class American life. The grid transforms would-be narratives, such as the scenes that might follow and precede the romance on the bottom grid under R5536, R being the subject category for romance, into frames that can be rearranged, recombined, or reproduced in multiple contexts. So I started with the idea that images like these, I said, they allegorize the process of seeing machinically. And I want to conclude by pressing on this idea of allegory. I try to interpret stock photography using Walter Benjamin's concept of allegory. Like many Benjaminian concepts, I find it really capacious and generative while contradictory. So in my own gloss, Benjamin, talks about the figure of the allegorist as someone who approaches images or the past in a different way than other figures he talks about, like the scholar or the collector. The allegorist uses the wreckage of myth to harvest for symbols, for new meanings. In this way, he argues, Baroque poets, people kind of dismissed by the scholars of his day, are actually doing this really important role of deconstructing myth by revealing the mechanics of meaning making. This posits allegory as a way of seeing anything as being able to stand in for something else, capable of holding different meanings, and ultimately as available, as symbol. So even if stock photography, through its repetition of stereotypes and categories, might reflect or reinforce totalizing narratives about race, class, and gender, there's also this historical detonation from within, in the way that training the public to see images in that way teaches, for better or for worse, teaches the viewer to see meaning as arbitrary and flexible, teaches us to see images as alienable content that can travel contexts. And I was thinking, in Omar's ability to reintroduce a image from an entirely different context into this new context is a process in part of making images available and understanding the ways in which we can, interpret them through different relays of meaning. So thank you.